All right, so I'm recording our webinar on just overview of ACT. And the first thing we did is we looked at the lookup button on the left, and if I want to look for Melissa, I type in part of her name. It takes me to the contact list, and I can see Melissa Weather and Melissa Pierce. And I double-click, and there's Melissa Weather. If I want to find everybody from New York or California or Texas, I'm going to right-click on the state field, choose Lookup State, type in New York, and you see this box right here where it says For Current Lookup says Replace Lookup. Replace Lookup says ignore what you've already looked up, in which case I was looking up Melissa, and show me the people from New York. Replace Lookup says forget what I had looked up before, show me New York. So now you see I've got 25 people from New York. Now I want to add to this people from California. Right-click on the state field, look up state, CA for California, and instead of replacing lookup, if I chose replace lookup, it would have said forget New York, let's just see California. Add to lookup says, okay, keep New York, but show me California too. So now on my list, you see I've got California and New York. Now before you get going, I know, later on we'll talk about how to print out a report that sorts by state, for example. But right now, you can customize, or you can sort in the contact list by clicking the field at the top. So you see I've got California and New York. We'll go one more step and we're going to add Texas. Right click, look up state, there's Texas, and I'm going to add. So now I've got 68 over a total of 3 different states. And I'm just interested now in seeing the let's just look at the prospects. Okay, so I'm going to narrow my list. I'm starting with a list of everyone from New York or California or Texas, and I want to narrow this by those who are prospects. And instead of replace, remember replace would say forget about New York, California, Texas, and show me prospects. Add to would say keep California, New York, and Texas, and show me also everyone who's a prospect. And narrow says from the list of New York and California and Texas, show me the ones that are prospects that belong in those 3 states. So we want narrow the lookup here. And I hit this. So now you see everyone with a prospect that's from New York or California or Texas. What I just showed you is real simple, just the concept of doing a lookup. So this was doing a lookup by doing a query. In a minute, I'll show you how to do lookups of members of a group. But looking up somebody is like asking a question of my database. So in this case, we said, show me everyone from New York or California or Texas who is also a customer. Later on, I might have a group that says, hot customers, in which case I might want to do a lookup that says, show me everyone that is a member of the group called hot customers. But in either way, I'm doing a lookup or a query first. I ask the question of the data, that's step 1, and then after that, if I want to do labels or a report or envelopes or something like that, I run that against the question I had just asked. So this first step was the lookup, where I asked the question, show me everyone from New York or California or Texas who is also a prospect. Later on, you might say show me everyone who is on the hot list that's from Texas, or something like that. So those are things, but you've got to do that lookup step first, and then once you've done a lookup, I'm going to show you labels because I want to show how easy it is. But you've got to remember step 1 before doing each of those things. Step 1 before doing labels, before doing envelopes, before doing reports, before doing letter templates or mail merges, is always to do a lookup first. And you check yourself. I'm not looking at 206 anymore. I'm looking at, just the 33 that I just looked up. Okay. So now to do labels, file, print, and in this particular section, you'll see an option for labels. Wake up. And then I can pick my, it's not rendering the view very good, but I can pick whatever label I want, like the Avery 5160. And then I can hit print. And after I hit print, I get a choice now to go in and select, do I want to do a current lookup? All contacts are current contact. This window right here is real important. If I choose all contacts, that's printing the whole database. If I choose the current contact, that's printing the current person. And I usually leave, so I want current lookup because that's what I chose. And then you're going to usually want data managed by all users. Okay, so I just can tell you for almost always you'll want that. If you need to put in a piece of label paper that maybe starts halfway through the page, you can go to the tab that says position, and you can tell it where to start. Third row, second column. Again, I usually just shove a new piece of paper in. Okay, so that's my label. I'm telling it to print current lookup. That's what's important. Each of those things I told you, labels, envelopes, mail merge, reports, all have an option for you to specify a current lookup. So you want to have done your lookup first. All right, print, and so here you see. Now this one, if you take a look, William, Nathan, Marion, William, Nathan, Miriam, Greg, Kirby, Stoney. Okay, so this is in the order that the list is in. All right, so we'll come back and look at how to order your reports a little bit later, but this one respects the list that you're in. In fact, let's just prove it. Let's sort by zip code and do it again. File, print, labels, 5160, print, current lookup. See that? So this is pulling from the list that you get, but it's actually a different report writer than the report. So we'll come back and talk about how to do the reports when we're done. All right, so basics of this is how do I do a lookup? Now, before I get too far, I want to kind of show you. Let's go back. Remember, Melissa just called us. I go and I find Melissa, and everything, once I find her record, I can update her record. Like maybe, she moved from Dunwoody to Atlanta, and maybe she's not the vice president anymore. She's now the purchasing manager. So I can go and update any demographics for her. But let me show you some tabs at the bottom. And they split the notes and the history apart, in 2005 Act, version 7. And so I'm going to give you a suggestion that you don't have to follow, but generally speaking, we make notes for background information. Like, for example, I might say here, Melissa's an engineer by training. She works half a day on Friday. That's background information. That doesn't say, what I'm trying to usually suggest doing is avoiding journaling here. I wouldn't journal and say, Melissa called yesterday and she wants to do a deal with us in 2014 in September. It should be about $20,000, and remember to call her in July and set up the deal. That's kind of journaling, and although it's okay to do it that way, you're missing a lot of the functionality of ACT, and it's really kind of hard to search. So if I'm trying to see what's going on, what's Melba been doing, who's Melba been talking to recently, or what's going on with Melba's customers, I'd have to print out everything Melba did and go and read it all. And I don't know about you, I'm too lazy for that. So that's why I reserve notes for background information. If Melissa calls and let's say Melba had put in the note and Bernie took the call, Bernie can go to Melissa's record and see the note that Melba put about Melissa. That, oh, Melissa's an engineer, she works half a day on Fridays, that means don't call her Friday afternoon because she's off with the kids. That's how I use that. Now, histories are a place for events that have happened. Email sent, meeting held, call received, things like that. And let me tell you why. If you take a look, this set of fields in this area here on this database, and I'll show you where yours are on yours, if they're not in the exact same place. But you see they're grayed out, and they say last edited, last reach, last meeting, last letter, that type of stuff. Watch what happens if I hit the history button. So let's say Melba called, and I want to record the fact that she called. I hit the history button, and then within that history button, I'm going to say this was a phone call that was received, and we talked about new deal for pipeline, and she, she says, read the proposal and is ready to go. So I've recorded the phone call. Now, if you take a look down here, I can go and actually schedule a follow-up. Because if she called and said, I've read the proposal, I'm ready to go, let's get together next Tuesday, I can go to follow-up now, and I can say, okay, next Tuesday, let's have a meeting and call it Go Over Proposal. And it's going to go from 10 to 11. So I click OK, that schedules the follow-up activity. I click OK, that records the current history. So now, for example, I can look at today's history. You can see the phone call was made today. If I look at activities, you can see the Go Over Proposal to happen next Tuesday. And so that lets me kind of see, if I'm, let's say Melba's out of the office and Bernie takes the call, she can go notes and see, oh, Melba's an engineer. She works half a day on Fridays. History, I see our last thing was a phone call at 7:54 a.m. Talk about a new deal from a pipeline, and Chris took the call. So if Melba had done this, it would be Melba's name there, and Bernie would see, oh, Melba's the guy, the person talking to that. Activity, I can say, oh, this is the stuff we've got coming on with Melissa. You see, I've done this a few times, so there's some things like, oh gosh, I missed an early dinner. I better go and go to that. But you can see what's coming up in the schedule or the calendar with her. There's another feature part of ACT. I'm going to go over this just briefly right now. And for some folks, they use this. It's called sales opportunities. And so if Melba were to say, or if Melissa were to say, I've got this deal, it's worth $50,000, and I'd like you to bid on it, and it's going to close in September. And I don't know if you'll use this or not, but just let me introduce it to you. You see, there's two other deals that we have with Melissa. And I can click New Opportunity, and this brings up an opportunity window, and I can give this opportunity a name called the Big Truck Project. I can say we expect it to close September 1st. I can go and add products to it if I want to. And I'm going to just really glance over this, and I can say maybe the deal's worth $50,000. So when I go back to Melba's record, I keep saying Melba, I'm sorry. I go back to Melissa's record, you see I've got this opportunity here. So if I'm trying to see what does our company have going on with Melissa, I can go to the Opportunity tab for Melissa and see that we've got a deal with zero total, a deal with $400, and a deal with $50,000 or $4,000 and $50,000. I can see, oh, these are good deals. I might go, well, what do we need to do to get that business in today? So those are sales opportunities, and some companies use them, some companies don't. It just depends on, if you need to track a forecast. All right, how are we doing with questions so far?
I'm fine.
Am I scratching where you're itching? Other than I just spilled my coffee on my lap. Woo!
Also.
Okay. So my assumption is that sales opportunities probably not right now for you guys. So I'm going to suggest maybe we don't spend more time on it unless you just go, hey, that's the best thing ever. I can spend more time on it.
No need to.
Okay. I didn't think that was a big deal for you, at least right now. Okay, so let me kind of go back. I'm going to dive more into a couple of the views down the side, then we'll get into your groups and some of the specific questions you had. So each of the views down the left-hand side, for the most part, have a detailed view and a list view. So remember, I did my lookup of everybody from New York or California or Texas. I think I can do it here. Here we go. There's prospects from New York or California or Texas. Remember this back button? It's like leaving a bread trail. You see all these different lookups I did before?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the lookup that I did. And remember I said there's a detail view and a list view. So looking in, here's Kirby York. I can double click on Kirby York and that goes to his record in the detail view. I can look at all about Kirby. Or I can go and look at other people. Well, let's look at Ben Braddock. Double click. So I'm going back and forth between detail and list. This is kind of helpful. So let's say I look at, maybe I look for everybody from, let's say I'm going to drive, you're going to come to Texas next week. I want to see who's in Texas that I can go see. Right click, look up state, TX, there they are, and you can just eyeball it. Oh, okay, how about this, how about this, how about this? My point with this list view is that each of the list views can be exported to Excel if you want. So I can click a button and export that list to Excel, and you can do stuff with it there if you'd like. I'll take a second to start up here. And the reason I say this is Excel, in terms of, and I know we're going towards where we're going to talk about reports and maybe customizing reports, but Excel is so easy to get the data out exactly the way you want it, okay? So for example, let's say I have a company that does my mailing for me, and they need a list with just my email addresses and the company names and the contact names, and that's all they care about because they're going to do a blast for me. If I go to options at the top right, I go to customize columns, I'm basically going to take everything out of the way from left to right except company contact and email. So I'm just moving it from the right back to the left. The left-hand side is what is available for my list. The right-hand side is what's showing on my list. So there's company contact and email. And there I've got it. There's a list of company contact and email. And if my mail company needs that, all I've got to do is hit export to Excel. And then from Excel, I just go to File and send it to them. It's real easy. And it's a lot. In the past, we had to go to File and Data Export and all these steps. Or even if you wanted a report that does that, it's not easy to customize a report if that's the data I need. It's just there's more steps there. So for the most part, if you're just looking for a list of people, do your lookup and then use the contact list to get the fields that you want and then export to Excel. And that'll let you do more stuff and spend less time customizing things. If you're just going to use it once, there's really no point in customizing a report. So just stick that in your pocket. That's something you can do. So I have the ability to export to Excel from the contact list, the group list. So if you wanted to go to the group list view and export this to Excel, you could. I don't do that one as much. The company list. And not everybody uses companies, and so if you don't, then it's another entity. And so if you sell to large organizations and you're trying to track everything we said with, so-and-so and so-and-so. So for example, here's CH Holding, and they've got two divisions, an import division and a tech division. I'm trying to see, these are the guys at the tech division, these are the guys at the import division. What did we do with tech and what did we do with import? Again, that's generally if you work with big organizations and lots of people at big organizations. Otherwise, it's extra steps and not so necessary. So again, I'm assuming that's not where you need to spend a ton of time. And for now, since you haven't used it in the past, I'd say, hold off and do that as a phase 2. But it's nice if you do, work with big organizations and so on, and lots of people at them. calendar view I'll come back to. This is just the different calendars. The other stuff that's really neat is the task list. And if you remember I scheduled that meeting with Melissa, I can say show me everything today. And I can select, who my users are I'd like to see it for. And this shows up anything that's in ACT that's scheduled for people. So if you use the ACT calendar, this is a tabular view of what's going on in ACT. So I might want to say what's going on during the current month. And that just Chris is doing. So if you use this and I'm Chris and I want to print out my list to take with me, you could sure print a task list report or print the calendar, but there's also this cool button called Export to Excel. It sticks that thing right in a spreadsheet. You can customize the columns you want, and there's what you're doing this week. So it's really it's the poor man's report, it's the lazy man's report for that. I'll work from this list. Like I usually schedule phone calls for people, and I'll work from this list, and I might want to say, well, show me everything I've got to, here's my stuff that I'm doing this month. I've got a question about Julie. I don't remember who Julie is. I can click on Julie and go refresh my memory of her notes and history and activities, and then I can go back to my task list and look at, well, how about Nisha, and so on. So that's kind of a neat view. The history list is brand new to this version of ACT, and this is a good way to answer that question. What did you do last week, or what's been going on? And so, for example, let's go back and let's say, what did we do this month? So or last month. Here's last month, and this is anything having to do with a phone call, a meeting, a to-do, anything that has to do with something you've been doing. And here's the list of stuff. And there's actually a keyword filter. So let's say I want to find just the network events. And so there's, any networking events that my users went to. There's a networking breakfast, a breakfast networking group, all this stuff. And it's really easy to see. Histories are things that have happened in the past, things that have been done. Which generally means as you work the database, as you call people, you want to make that history rather than a note. If you're just putting in notes, this list is going to be blank because notes show up differently. In fact, let me go back and show you. I made that history for Melissa. You see these fields right here, last edited, last reach. Because I recorded this history call received, that flags the last reach date of right here. So if I want to find everybody that I've talked to this week, I can right click, do look up last reach, and I want to say within the last 7 days. So there's everybody that I've talked to in the last 7 days. Or maybe I want to find everybody that I have not talked to in a year or longer. Right click, look up, and I want to say greater than or older than 365 days. Bad example. How about older than 30 days? So this is everybody that has not had any type of a history in the last 30 days. And that's a good way if you're trying to find, well, who have I missed? Who have I not been talking to? That kind of stuff. Okay, speeding down, since we're not doing opportunities much, there is an opportunity view. So if you're trying to see all the deals that are out there, that's good with that. I'm going to come back to talk about reports and dashboards in just a bit. Search is kind of a neat feature because it searches the whole database. Attachments, notes, histories, everything. So if I'm looking for anything having to do with network, and it's going to search everything. Takes a little bit longer, but it's searching contacts and groups and companies and opportunities and attachments and the whole thing. So there you see it. So here's networking breakfast. There's Savoy Network is incorporated. So if you know what was in there, then you can do that. Or maybe you had a conversation about coffee. There's all your coffee stuff. And I can go, oh, okay, this is here's a note talking about mergers with coffee companies. I can click on that. It takes me right to that note on that record. So that's called universal search, and it's also kind of neat here. All right, so I'm going to show you one more thing, and then we're going to come and talk about the reports. Okay, groups. In the past, or old versions of ACT had groups that we now call static groups. Static groups mean we put somebody in a group and they stay there until we take them out. So for example, a Christmas card list. And so I want to make a Christmas card list group. I'll show you how I do that, and that's still pretty good, but there's a neat way to do it. If I go back to my contact list here, and I do look up all contacts, the contact list has a way to put things in the tag mode. So this is like Santa Claus doing who's naughty and nice. I can go, well, naughty, 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 naughty. Okay? And here's omit selected. This is what Santa Claus does every year. Omit selected, you're off the list. Okay? Or you can do it the other way. Nice, 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 nice. Now we do look up selected, and there's the people that I had marked as nice. Okay? And I just eyeballed it. I went through and I said, these are the guys that are naughty, or these are the guys that are nice. I omit the naughties. I keep the nice. But now I want to keep this as a group. It's not based upon a criteria. It's based upon the fact that I just eyeballed it. So lookup, groups, save lookup as group. This takes the people that I did my lookup, and I'm going to call this my Christmas nice list. As soon as I save it, you see all of these people are parts of the group. And that's, yours mostly are done that way, and I'll show you how to look. If I go to add or remove contacts, it has two sections, static, dynamic. Static are people we stuck in the group like we just did. George, Emily, Jane, those are people in my list. If I go to contacts here, you'll see a list of them, and those people that I stuck in. If I want to take George Bailey out because he's not been nice, I can click, hit the button, and he's gone. Okay, that's a static group. The other type of group, before I show you other things, is called a dynamic group. And a dynamic group is based upon a query or asking a question. So for example, I might want to find everybody that's a prospect from California, New York, or Texas. So I'm going to call that one my territory. So I'm going to go to groups and call it a new group, and I'm going to just say my TX CA NY territory. Now watch what I can do. Add or remove contacts. In this case, I want this to be a dynamic group. Edit criteria, and I'm going to say that contacts that have a field called state equals to CA for California, state equals to NY for New York, or a state equals to TX for Texas. Okay, so you got to read this like algebra. Remember in the old days we had algebra, we had parentheses. So what we're saying here is if the state equals to California and the state equals to New York and the state equals to Texas, show it to me. Well, there's no such person that can live in all three states at once, and so it says there's nothing. So I got to go and set this to show me the state equals to California, or the state equals to Texas, or there goes a train, the state equals to New York. Now when I preview, I see that 68 that I did earlier. Now I'm going to do one more thing. I want the ID status to contain prospect, which is that list I did earlier, and add to the list. But you got to remember your parentheses, just like algebra, okay? So we don't want, what it does right now is it says, show me everybody from California or New York or the prospects from Texas. That's not what I want. I want to find everybody from either California or New York or Texas who is also a prospect. And so now when I hit preview, you'll see the 68 drops to 33, and there's that list. Now the nice thing about dynamic groups, so here's Christy Cameron of American Dreams. She's in this group because she's from Texas and she's a prospect. Well, if she's no longer a prospect and we make her a lead, go to groups, and Christy Cameron is no longer number 1 on the list. I go back and I set from, I go find Christy Cameron, oops. Here's Christy Cameron again, and I'm going to change her from lead back to prospect. And I look at my groups, and there she is at the top. So the membership of these groups are dynamically based upon criterias. And you can do all sorts of stuff. I can say, I can have a criteria of contacts created this week. I can have a criteria of people who are prospects that haven't been talked to in 6 weeks or more. And you can make all sorts of criterias. So what I want to get into, though, is your next step, because I know you've got a lot of groups. That's my 15-minute warning. We've got a lot of groups, and we want to do, labels to these people, and we want to do reports to these people, and so on. So let's take, for example, first, here's my territory group. Any group that you have, remember, before I can do labels and letters and envelopes and reports, I've got to do a lookup first. So I can either go to contact and I can do that lookup, or I can go to groups. Remember the one I did called My Christmas Nice List? If I want to do letters to these guys, I've got to look them up first. It's not enough just to select the group, because if I go back to contacts, I don't have that group in my list. I got 3 Camerons in my list. If I want to see the lookup of the people that are members of the group called My Christmas Nice List, I've got to look them up. So I select the group, which is called My Christmas Nice List, then I hit the magnifying glass right here. That's one way, or you can right-click and choose Create Lookup. Either one. Here's the magnifying glass. That takes you from the group view where I've selected the group to the contact view where I'm looking up the members of that group. And I told Bernie yesterday we're going to double-check ourselves. Number 1, we're going to verify that the number of records is about right. And down at the bottom left, it's going to say the group that we just looked up. Look up group My Christmas Nice List. Once I've done that, now I'm ready to do labels, envelopes, and so on. So, for example, File, Print. We'll do envelopes this time, number 10s, hit Print. We want current lookup. This is going to give me 1 page per, or 1 letter envelope per record across 13 people. Hit OK, and there we have it. There's number 1, there's number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? If I want to do a contact report, I'll show you, I'll get it customizing in just a second. Reports, and here's contact directory, current lookup. We just want 13. We don't want the whole database. And now you can see it here. Now the point you brought up is, well, gosh, it's not sorted the right way. Well, the sorting in these reports is driven by the report itself. So if I need to see this report sorted by state, let me first add the states to this list so I can take a look at them. And so here we've got Texas, and here I'm going to make I want to make one with Alabama because I want him to show up at the top. So we're looking for Rick to show up at the top when we're done. Okay. What I snuck in to show you is that there's an edit mode. With edit mode, I can go in and change phone numbers. You know, so if I don't like that number, I can change his number and so on. Okay, so I've got my lookup. And when I ran the report, it was sorted in some other order. So I need to go customize that report. So I'm going to give you a real quick view on customizing. We go to Reports, Edit Template. And I'll tell you this, when you do these, it's best to save it immediately with a different name and leave your Virgin reports pristine. So here's a long list of different reports that are here. The one we did was the contact directory, I believe. So I'm going to open that in Edit View. And the thing I'm going to do right away is save it. File, Save As. And I'm just going to put the word My Contact Directory at the front. So now if I blow this up, I can go back to the original. If it turns out you need a whole bunch of custom reporting, it's probably better to do another session because there's an awful lot to this. But what I wanted to give you really quick is how to move things around. Like one of the comments that Tony made yesterday is we really don't need the home address stuff. So I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to drag a box that encloses those home address things. See how they're all selected? And I'm going to delete on the keyboard. And then I'm going to just take this section and move it up. Now, if you wanted to put a bunch of other fields in, you can take this section and move it down. You can go and add a field like alternate phone and stick it in there. And it's a little bit of tediousness to move these around, but you could if you wanted this to go up to the top. You know, there's a lot you can do with this. The basic principle in terms of these things is to save frequently because there's not a lot of undos. So get it about like you like it, tighten it back up again, and just hit save at every milestone. So we've added the alternate phone field at the bottom here. We've taken off the home phone, the home information. All right, so sorting is controlled by properties of these items. So I'm going to go right-click here and hit Define Filters. Oops, wrong button. Define Sections. And so Section 3 is where we are. And it's basically, and we want to tell it how to sort. So we're going to sort by the state field. What you're doing is you're changing the report template so it always will sort by this field. So we're going to tell it to sort by the state field and do it in an ascending order. We're clicking OK. We'll save our report. And let's go run it and see. So now we're hoping that Alabama Rick Blaine shows up at the top. Report menu, we've got to go to Other Contact Reports, find the one called My Contact Directory, Current Lookup, so now Rick Blaine's at the top, Alabama, Oku Islands, I guess, Arizona. But the same thing as if I were to go here and click by state. Now it's sorted by the state field. Any questions on that part? So if this is the reports you need to do all the time, most of the time what I would do is look at your layout and look at the field that you'd like to see in this report. Make a list of them. And typically what I'll do, like for example, if there's a field over here called trivia and I'd like to see that one, I always want to right click and see it says look up trivia. That tells me the field name. Then if I go and edit it, report menu, edit report, my custom directory. If I want to put their trivia field here, I basically give myself room for it, go to field, make a box, and go down till I see trivia. And I can tighten it up, save it. So I can go and put loves bowling, and this is kind of a neat thing where the contact list is good for. So I can go back to contact list and customize, and I can find the trivia field. And I can put this into the edit mode. And in this case, I can say loves bowling, golf pro, has 12 kids, loves boating, loves the Astros. I'm from Texas, remember. So I do all that. Now when I run report menu, other report, my contact directory, current lookup. So there's my trivia. Loves boating, golf pro, has 12 kids, likes the Astros. All right. So 5-minute warning. I'm ready for questions or stumpers or anything like that.
Tony, Melba, you got any questions?
Silence. No, I don't.
So here's what I'd like you to do is use yours. I'll put this up on a YouTube site where you can go look at it if you'd like. If there's any questions you have, or just make a list of them, and we'll get you going. We'll make sure that we help you get up to snuff with this. Bernie, you've never been this quiet. Whoa.
Huh?
Sorry. You've never been this quiet.
Well, I wanted you to have the main screen.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All righty. Well, okay. So anyway, digest them. I stopped the recording.